Hello students. Now let us take into account the key functional aspects of ecosystem. We did discuss about functional aspects of ecosystem and why we deal with functional aspects only, because ecosystem is not just a unit, it is a functional unit of ecology, So we are going to deal with key functional aspects of ecosystem, which are first one being productivity. Second is energy flow. Third is decomposition. And last one is nutrient cycling. Now these names we had heard of earlier as well. This is repetition only. What we are going to deal with now is the productivity. This is the functional aspect of ecosystem which deals with producers. Now I told you earlier as well, whenever I am talking about producers, I am referring to green plants over here. In the most gross way I can say it is green plants I am referring to. Or I am talking about autotrophs. When I use the term autotrophs, I am dealing with the mode of nutrition over here. Which mode of nutrition? Autotrophic mode of nutrition. That means these producers, whosoever they would be, certainly they would be green plants, they would be autotrophic in nature. That means they would be using photosynthesis. Photosynthesis as means of, it would be a process which would be used as means of production of organic material. So we come across few terms that photosynthesis, when we talk about productivity, photosynthesis would be the key process. What it is going to produce? It is going to produce the organic material. Who would be producing them? The green plants. So you get to know that how important forests are. Forest ecosystem is the only source from where we get organic material on earth. If there is any source which can convert the inorganic energy into the organic material which we can consume, it is the autotrophs only, because they know how to use the solar insolation. When I say solar insolation, it is the sun's rays or the energy present in the sun's rays, how to use it in the chemical bonds and then provide it to the other biotic component of the ecosystem, which are consumers. Alright, so we will not get to what consumers do and how they obtain energy, because over here we are talking about productivity. Yes, we do discuss that what consumers do of this productivity which is done by producers, but that is secondary productivity. What we are going to deal with over here is that how many types of productivities are there. Is it clear that the productivity is done by producers? I am going to repeat it again. It would be done by producers. Producers are a biotic component which produce their own food by the process of photosynthesis, which is nothing but trapping the solar energy for the production of organic material, which happens to be glucose. I need not to tell you what photosynthesis is, because everyone hears about this term from their childhood. Now what we are going to study is that how many types of productivity you would find in terms of autotrophs only, not about heterotrophs I am talking about. Autotrophs would be green plants. So do keep in mind that when we talk about productivity and it is about autotrophs, so we have had two types of ecosystems, if you remember. One was terrestrial and other was aquatic ecosystem. So in terms of productivity, the terrestrial ecosystem would leave aquatic ecosystem far behind, because you can find a 400 feet tall tree on earth, on land in fact, not in water. So you can very well imagine how much algae is going to do productivity. That would cover large span of water, and how much a tree with so many leaves, with so many parts which are actually contributing in the productivity, with so much of biomass production, is going to leave behind the aquatic ecosystem in any means. So consider the terrestrial ecosystem. We have two types of productivities when we are talking about autotrophs. First one is gross primary productivity. When I use the term gross, it means include everything, alright, not just a particular portion, everything is included. So the primary productivity, why I am saying, because the producers, they happen to fall under primary producers, primary production. That means first hand production from the inorganic material, conversion into the organic material. And the other one is net primary productivity. Please keep in mind, these are the two types of productivity. Both of them are done by the autotrophs only. Producers would only do it. Okay. Producers would be autotrophs. I am using the term producers because that has more relevance in ecology as compared to the term autotrophs, which had more relevance in classification, if you remember. Gross primary productivity would be that amount of organic matter. Please pay attention. I am using the term organic matter, which is formed as a result of photosynthesis. Is it clear? If not, listen to me again, that gross primary productivity is the production of organic matter by the producers by the process of photosynthesis. That means a process is going on which takes up the inorganic energy. Energy is inorganic, which takes up the inorganic components of the ecosystem, utilizes the solar energy and forms the organic matter. That organic matter happens to be gross primary productivity. Now let's get into photosynthesis, what this process is all about. You know, photosynthesis is conversion of carbon dioxide into glucose, if I have to say it in simplest terms. Alright, that glucose is stored by the plant in its leaves or other places. Carbon dioxide, it combines with water. Both of them are abiotic components. They combine with water. They form the glucose. This glucose is going to be used by the plant for its development, because anything which is growing in size, it is taking some energy source, and that happens to be glucose. Now, you can't define productivity in terms of glucose at least. What you are going to define productivity as, it would be the amount of CO2 that is being taken by the producers, because ultimately our food source is carbon dioxide, but you cannot take carbon dioxide directly, that would be poisonous. When that carbon dioxide gets converted to glucose by the green plants in the presence of sunlight, then only you can take that glucose. You or any other life form, any other heterotroph that feeds on the autotrophs would take up that glucose. That means it is the fixation of CO2 into glucose. It is basically the fixation of CO2 would define the gross primary productivity. So in order to get a better idea that how much this gross primary productivity is, if I choose carbon dioxide as the parameter, that it is the carbon dioxide whose fixation is deciding how much a particular producer is producing, in totality I am talking about, that would form the gross primary productivity. Alright, so it is the fixation of CO2. When I talk about net primary productivity is what is available to the heterotrophs. Now producers are gone. Over here I would get consumers or the heterotrophs. You see, plants are not doing some sort of social service. They are doing, of course, but whatever is available to us is that part which they have used and left over we are given. So heterotrophs or the consumers we are talking about, the consumers are going to get the leftovers. Don't get into the literal meaning of the sentence. Just try to understand that these producers are going to do gross primary productivity. Out of this gross primary productivity, they would certainly use something for their own survival as well. So that survival, whatever material is used for their survival, is termed as respiratory loss. Now what is respiration? Respiration is the process of breakdown of glucose into carbon dioxide. if we are terming productivity as CO2's fixation, when this CO2 is being released out, that would be a loss. So basically, net primary productivity would be whatever has been fixed by the producers, that is GPP, gross primary productivity, whatever has been fixed by them during the process of photosynthesis, and the part that has been used by them, that is respiratory loss, that some of the glucose they must have used for their own survival as well, because nobody comes and gives them food. They make their own food, they utilize their own food. So GPP minus respiratory loss would be net primary productivity. Now why do I call it net? Because here I am going to step further in productivity, that I have to talk about secondary productivity. So that productivity or that much biomass which is available to the heterotrophs, that is known as net primary productivity. I hope I am clear with this GPP and NPP concept, that it is the respiratory loss done by the producer itself which determines how much the net primary productivity would be, how much of the productivity would be available to the consumers. Now time and again I have used the term secondary productivity during an entire lesson. So let us get into what is secondary productivity. Earlier also I used a sentence that whosoever eats food is going to be somebody's food, alright, but whosoever makes food would certainly be somebody's food. Okay, that happens to be net primary productivity. Now after somebody has eaten food, when you eat food, you store it somewhere in your body. A child grows to a size of an adult, or a plant grows from a seed to a huge plant because it is eating something. So whatever is being eaten, that is also showing some productivity. Supposedly I say that I have made muscles in gym by practicing, that is my productivity, that is I am showing. In terms of eating food, in terms of ecosystem, then also we have heterotrophs are also showing some sort of productivity. Supposedly I am consuming deer's meat. So I am consuming deer's productivity which it had gained by eating some sort of grass. So the secondary productivity is the productivity that a heterotroph shows. Alright, heterotroph would eat some food, that would be secondary productivity. So supposedly this is grass. Grass has been eaten by a hen. Supposedly somebody is feeding on this meat. It is a man. So grass has taken solar energy and grown to some size. Please excuse my diagrams in this term. This is supposedly the grass. This grass, it took the solar energy. It did that primary productivity out of which the respiratory losses were taken. Now this grass which is available for eating to hen, or the grains which are available for hen, that would be NPP. After consuming this grass, this hen is going to take that energy and store it in the form of muscular tissue or adipose tissue, or whatever the growth that would take inside that hen would be the secondary productivity. Now the man who would consume this hen is feeding on the secondary productivity. Then again, this is not done by the producers. This is not the original inorganic entity which has changed into organic one. This also happens to be secondary productivity, and he or she would further accumulate that productivity in terms of muscles or in terms of fat in their body. That would also be secondary productivity. So whichever living organism, moving or still, whichever living organism you face, that is result of productivity. Which productivity? Net primary productivity which is available. And the plants which are, you can see, those are also net primary productivity, because few of the productivity has been lost in respiratory losses. Now so much of productivity, let's talk about how this productivity is measured. Of course it would be measured in terms of biomass only. So when we term biomass, there are two terms, one is production and other is productivity. It is just like in a factory you are producing 200 units, that is the production. But when I say that you are producing 200 units in 1 week, that is productivity. So we have the unit of productivity, that is the biomass per year, like we have the time limit as well. The rate of biomass production for a given ecosystem is termed as its productivity. So this is all about productivity. We would take into account energy flow, that how this productivity, whichever has been done by the producers, how it is going to reach. Right now I just drew that hen thing, and how it reaches to the next level, how it reaches to the next biotic component, that is the part of energy flow, which we shall discuss in the next lesson.